All right, those are your headlines. We're going to get into our top story now as the world gears up to mark Nelson Mandela International Day. London is set to host a massive concert to honor the late statesman. Some of the artists who will perform at the Nelson Mandela Day concert say that they are honored to be part of that festival. The iconic Trafalgar Square in central London will come alive when it hosts South African artists and their international counterparts. Now, SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo has more from the British capital. Kaya, very good morning. We're obviously building up to the hype and all the action in honor of our late Utata Nelson Mandela. Talk to us a little bit more about what we can expect as the day kickstarts. It's over to you. Good morning.
Well, certainly, Lisa, welcome to Trafalgar Square. So this is one of the key landmarks here in the British capital. But also when you talk about the history of really resistance against apartheid, this was one of the epicenters really where the demonstrations were held. And today it's bound to be a culmination really as the South African artists will be performing here, showcasing the beauty of South Africa. But essentially, to quote the Minister of Sports and Arts and Culture of South Africa, Gayton Mackenzie, this is a way of appreciating the world for supporting South Africa in the fight against apartheid. So it's going to be a very star-studded lineup, Liesel. We're expecting the likes of Jesse Clerk, Msanki, Mikasa, and the list goes on and on. So it's going to be an incredibly awesome day here in the British capital. So it's going to start around 1 p.m. South African time. And we got an opportunity as well to speak to some of the artists, Liesel. They're looking forward to the show itself. They're saying it's going to be a very phenomenal production. But apart from that, I mean, it's all about showcasing really what South Africa has to offer the world. And Liesel, when you talk about London and Nelson Mandela, you go back all the way to 1988 when Madiba was turning about 70 years and he was incarcerated. There was a massive concert that was held in Wembley Stadium, and so many artists from all over the world, they came out calling for his unconditional release. So a lot of commemorative events have been held since he came back in London in 1990, Liesel, where he said, thank you to the world for supporting the struggle of South Africa, but thank you for really making sure that he was finally released. So this is almost like a culmination point where in 2026 now you're going to have these concerts, but something that is very significant as well, Liesel, is that it's 30 years of South Africa's constitution. So the Scatterlings of Africa concert is going to be held right behind where we're positioned, and we're going to be here throughout the day to give you a very, very comprehensive coverage.
Hiya, it's quite an exciting time, and thank you so much for bringing us that. I think if we're just looking at the state of the world right now, the leadership, the qualities that Nelson Mandela would have embodied, how it becomes even more relevant in this day and age as we navigate geopolitics, agency as a continent, and South Africa's position in this global stratosphere. Perhaps you can expand a little bit more about what that means to people. Any sentiments on that front?
Well, absolutely, Liesel. So it's a very turbulent phase for the world where you have conflicts, where you've got climate change, and all sorts of myriad of challenges confronting the world. I mean, really, when you look at the message by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres saying that Nelson Mandela was a towering figure that was always calling for equality, but also just echoing almost South Africa's G20 message when you talk about the reforms of the global financial institutions, saying really the world must do more in upscaling those efforts, in really ensuring that Madiba's legacy is well preserved. And also you look at the message as well by President Cyril Ramaphosa saying that it should be just a day for all of us, for all the people across the world, making sure that they honor Madiba by doing the wonderful things, but even beyond really the 18th of July in terms of making sure that his legacy is well sustained. So it's going to be a very very interesting day here in the British capital, Liesel. I mean, it's very hot in London, you know, the sweltering conditions. We're expecting over 20,000 South Africans. As you know, it's a very significant time in South Africa. It is an election year. And when you talk about the largest voting station outside of South Africa, the UK is one of the biggest, you know, voting station, and especially London, where you have a significant number of South Africans who are based here, and a lot of them are expected to flock here into Trafalgar Square. And a very interesting site as well, Liesel, because the diplomatic mission of South Africa is not far from here. In fact, last night we got an opportunity to go to an exhibition by one of the foremost South African artists, John Meyer, really just chronicling the life and times of Nelson Mandela, looking all the way back in 1918 in Ekunu, and also just looking at Nelson Mandela as one of the leading figures when you talk about the Defiance campaign in the 50s, but then Nelson Mandela as a prisoner, as a political activist, and all the way to the time in the 90s when he was released. And Nelson Mandela is a top negotiator and making sure that South Africa eventually was really free from apartheid.
And of course, Kai, I can see you donning your green and gold there ahead of the game that's also taking place. And please be sure to drink plenty of water today. Khayelihle Khumalo, they're out in Trafalgar Square in the UK for that celebration concert in honor of the late Nelson Mandela, of course, on Nelson Mandela International Day.